from an undisclosed location in the Great Western Desert in the land of the free and autonomous Native American people. The 2024 presidential campaign enables time to return all US land back to their rightful owners. This is the Ben Zion Podcast.
Techno-communism will win.
What's next after ChatGPT? Let's see what the businesslaboratory.com has to say about that. So much ink has been dedicated to raving about ChatGPT that I temporarily shelved my idea to write a post explaining what it is and what it does and doesn't do. I still think such an article is useful because most of the material I see misses a real point, which is how to incorporate language models like ChatGPT into business operations to make them better. Stay tuned on that front. For now, I wanted to talk about another subject in that domain, which gets very little attention, the what comes next regarding this technology breakthrough. And that was a little bit of the focus of the Ben Goertzel talk that I watched most of today. Then I had to make some dinner. Didn't get back to it yet. And Edward Snowden, who was sort of the guest of honor. Ben Goertzel is kind of providing color commentary as to the state of the science overall, or maybe what comes next. He's a futurist. And the what comes next is interesting. Machine-assisted human flight in the early 1900s happened with a fairly unremarkable device doing a single remarkable thing. The device afterward witnessed development of military and commercial air travel, much more exciting. The Apple Newton, arguably more exciting. It's a little bit we wouldn't be in a situation where there's a pandemic spreading around in the world in a short time without that technology. So, how good could it be? I did this bit where, I read a little bit about the specifications of an edible battery, a battery with non-toxic elements that could be used for certain specific uses, like surgical uses, most particularly. But, the idea was that it could have uses in other areas. And my point was that we haven't lived in this world where things are non-toxic. I can point to 40 things in my apartment that I'd rather not have here, but kind of haven't gotten around to getting rid of them, or don't have much of a choice, that are made of toxic chemicals. You can't step outside without breathing particulate that's petrochemical trace elements and so forth. If you live in a city anywhere in the West, really anywhere at all, and why is that? Why is that a necessity, right? Okay, well, some of these things are doing real work, making life livable for humanity. But I'm quite convinced that we could have had this non-toxic mandate and still develop most of those goods and services. People were packing food in wax paper and things like that, and it didn't last as long. It had to be shipped at a shorter distance as the things that are packed in plastic, but still edible. And it wasn't releasing microplastic beads into your liver that were accumulating and killing you. So we've sacrificed things being some small percentage point more efficient. And what have we sacrificed for that efficiency? Well, a livable planet and a healthy human population. That doesn't seem like a real great trade-off. So I got off on a little tangent talking about this touted 20th century technology. We are 2.5 months into the release of the most recent version of ChatGPT. So far, it is too early to assess the knock-on effects. However, it is not too early to speculate on what that might be, so we can ready ourselves to capitalize on those developments. Before we get there, let's anchor ourselves on what ChatGPT actually is and is not. First and foremost, it is a language model, which means that it accepts input and direction from a user to create understandable prose about a given subject. Oddly, it doesn't know what it is telling you. For example, you can ask it to write a beautiful love letter to a significant other, include a few details about that person, and will generate text that will practically bring you to tears. So much so that it tricks you into thinking that it understands the concept of love and relationships. It does not. It's simply trained to understand what a love letter is by looking at billions of them in its structure, and has just enough intelligence to string words together to make for a sensible story. That is directly opposite of what a knowledge system is, which has been trained specifically to disregard the prompts, to respond to prompts where the prompt is digested and understood, and then mapped to a knowledge network. That doesn't make language models versus knowledge systems a competition, but I wanted you to all know that the two might seem to look the same, but feel and function, but are not. And so I think we can get a little too hung up on this, right? I don't know what's rattling around in another person's head. I sometimes say a lot of stuff and go back and watch it and was like, did I actually understand what I'm saying? Maybe not. But people who talk about this kind of stuff all day, they're pretty tedious people, and sometimes they're saying things that maybe don't exactly need to be said. Stephen Wolfram wrote two wonderful posts here links, comparing Wolfram Alpha, which is probably the best knowledge system out there, to ChatGPT, and I encourage you to check it out. I see several things on the horizon. Check with me in a few years and see if I'm right. convergence of language systems and language models. This is a marriage whose time has come, and as Stephen Wolfram has beautifully described. And then Wolfram is already has one of the more sophisticated ChatGPT integrations. You can't access or use that product line unless you pay for the ChatGPT Pro, which then gives you access to ChatGPT to go online and do kind of research for you, and not having just being limited to the conversation as you put it, but also using these plugins like the Wolfram plugin, which are powerful tools. I haven't even gotten to play with those because I haven't been able to spend the money for ChatGPT Pro, but I'm pretty familiar with the product lines nevertheless. So Wolfram is maybe a guy to watch in these areas, all of these areas. I see several things on the horizon. Check with me in a few years to see if I'm right. Back to the article. Domain-specific AI mutating off the public model. As a human, I not only want to know about things in the public domain like scientific facts and historical events, but also about private domains like my company. I would love to ask my AI the following. What are my earnings likely to be next year? Should I merge with competitor X, and if so, why? What are potential risks to my strategy there? OpenAI created ChatGPT by training on a broad cross-section of internet content. What if those same tools and methods could be unleashed on every piece of corporate data to develop a universal economic understanding of the company, including deep analysis of its strategy, operations, and finances? Yes, I don't like the framing of this around private wealth and the for-profit enterprise, but the idea itself is sound. Capitalism is not complex. It only is complex in that it ensconces irrelevancies and redundancies and things that don't really do any real work as being important, and protects them. And this is a lot of what is done in the pursuit of private wealth. So it's so much so that, when people say, oh, you couldn't run a planned economy using advanced algorithms, not specific enough. It's like, no, that's because you're using all of the advanced algorithms to create worthless shit. And then you're turning around and saying that all of that worthless shit is important, which it's not. The fundamental things like food supply chains and housing authority and healthcare that actually matter, that actually would be improving people's lives. Things like concerns with sustainability, all that could be done if we weren't just using it to create stupid fucking hairdos and shit on Instagram, and just dizzying amount of nonsense besides. So yeah, the capital. Anybody who says that you couldn't run a planned economy is obviously lying, right? The state of the art of this kind of thing is more than equal to meeting the needs of humanity, but they are just telling lies on behalf of private wealth, which is what people of the capitalist class overwhelmingly will do. And so, this guy is talking about more advanced systems along those lines, but of course he's not talking about using them in the right way. He's not a socialist, so he's just talking about using them to make a more sophisticated hyper-capitalist shit. OpenAI created ChatGPT by training it on a broad cross-section of internet content. At Business Laboratory, we've actually done a proof of concept work around this idea of this more sophisticated set of economic institutions around advanced algorithms, apparently. Preemptive AI. ChatGPT begins the prompt. Therefore, the user must be skilled enough to form a prompt that would give them the answer they intended. It puts a great deal of burden on the user to master the tricky art and science of prompting ChatGPT. Yeah, it's not super easy. You kind of have to trick ChatGPT most of the time, or you really have to kind of stop and think sometimes about what you're doing to really get to where you want to be. What if instead the system formulated its own prompts and submitted those at just the right moment, perhaps anticipating what the user should know? We call this preemptive AI. And this is getting to the point, I think, where you're having human integrated superintelligence. All right, human beings are kind of dumb chimps. We don't know what we're doing. Most of what we do is really dumb and harmful. But maybe that changes when this starts to become a thing and people start working together with things like this. Maybe we don't need brain-computer interfaces to change humanity. Maybe we just have things like this kind of sidekick type thing really bringing us together. But as the zero-sum game of capitalism, what's going to happen is just more hyper-capitalist trash and environmental destruction, and everyone obfuscating and lying about what their own role is in that, and how nothing can be done, which is a lie. Summary: any new groundbreaking technology creates winners and losers. Steam engine versus manufacturers. Steam engine manufacturers are the winners. The Luddites, the artisans who lost their jobs because of the steam engines were the losers. The skill that wins the coming decades is the curation of human knowledge into machines. But notice, when we're talking about the prospect of working people winning by a flattened playing field of advanced algorithms empowering them, then suddenly all of the capitalist class shills, pieces of shit you see in every news and news channel and YouTube channel practically, talking about the subject, that is, but also any subject, they're pieces of shit. Then they don't talk about how the working people will become the winners. They talk about how the AI is an existential risk because by working people becoming winners and stopping capitalism's climate apocalypse, that would threaten private wealth. We can't stop the track to having the world's first trillionaire. We can't, even if the world's first trillionaire will then be dead 6 years later. We can't stop doing the stupidest fucking thing, just being a bunch of dumb chimps. We have to keep killing the planet. So that's almost everybody who's talking about AI is advocating for the death of the planet by otherizing the AI, by saying it is the threat, and not talking about the capitalists versus the working people. The skill that wins the coming decade is the curation of human knowledge into machines, which in turn requires a non-trivial extraction process, followed by a data upload process. Medicine, law, engineering, business strategy, public systems, all of these are fields that have a substantial amount of human-based and text-based knowledge, but precious little computable power. So, the quantum computer does have that computing power. China's ahead of us, seems to be a bit ahead of us in those areas, and maybe more or less on even footing in other areas of advanced algorithms. They're not popularizing these ChatGPT products the way the West are. There's always a little more of a disconnect in socialist countries with the thing becoming the hot new thing, and the hot new thing for the most part in the fascist West is almost always just going to be distraction and just something idiotic, something more in the vein of bread and circuses, which ChatGPT maybe is a little bit of a departure from that. I'm quite convinced that they would have held this sort of thing back if they could. Google kind of more or less admitted it. The mask slipped a little bit at the beginning of this year. They said, yeah, we were holding this back because Google is a military contractor, basically. That's how they became a big company, by having this military contractor style integration of their company, making them huge. So, these people who are above and beyond just the ordinary bad capitalists, when they'll hold stuff back if it could potentially be a disruptor, but at a certain point they can't keep holding it back. It's beyond their power to hold it back, or everyone else is just going to jump over them, leapfrog over them if they try to do that. So that's the point at which Google suddenly rolls out some of these more sidekick-esque products. So it's no longer what you know that counts. It is what you can curate into a machine. Get ready. It's going to be a wild ride. That part's true. And some of the things that this person has said that the businesslaboratory.com has said is of interest, but filtering it through this kind of entrepreneurial language and the for-profit enterprise is not my favorite thing. But it's not the worst article I've ever read of that kind. It's filtered through that dog shit. This is from Andreessen Horowitz, A16c.com. And Why AI Will Save the World is a piece by Mark Andreessen. It's presumably one of the main contributors there. This is another one like the last one I read that I know I'm going to have to take some exception to, but probably still there's enough of a kernel of truth and all of that to make it worth discussing. The era of artificial intelligence is here, and boy, are people freaking out. Fortunately, I'm not here to bring the good news. I'm here to bring the good news. AI will not destroy the world, and in fact may save it. I mentioned, planet's dying. Every person who's otherizing AI in service to private wealth, in the way that they have already described, is basically some kind of crypto-fascistic climate denier, because better understanding of systems includes a better understanding of ecological systems and better ways to address those problems. Now, tech itself is also a huge mega polluter, which you shouldn't say any of this without saying that as well. A short description of what AI is: an application of mathematics and software code to teach computers how to understand, synthesize, and generate knowledge in ways similar to how people do it. AI is a computer program like any other. It runs, takes inputs, processes, and generates output. AI's output is useful across a wide range of fields, ranging from coding to medicine to law to the creative arts. It's owned by people, controlled by people, like any other technology. A shorter description of what AI isn't: killer software and robots that will spring to life and decide to murder the human race or otherwise ruin everything, like you see in the movies. But almost every tech commentator is using that very movie logic to obfuscate the role of the capitalist class in this problem, which is a massive role in this problem. Save us, China. An even shorter description of what AI could be: a way to make everything we care about better. That'd be nice. I don't know if this Horowitz, not being a communist, is really going to do that when the rubber meets the road, but he's saying he wants to, so that's something. Why AI can make everything better that we care about better. The most validated core conclusion of social science across many decades and thousands of studies is that human intelligence makes a very broad range of life outcomes better. Smarter people have better outcomes. It's a little elitist. Smarter people have better outcomes in almost every domain of activity: academic achievement, job performance, occupational status, income, creativity, physical health, longevity, learning new skills, managing complex tasks, leadership, entrepreneurial success. Jesus. Conflict resolution, reading comprehension, financial decision-making, understanding other perspectives, creative arts, parenting outcomes, and life satisfaction. Yeah. One thing I liked in that interview that I watched that included Ben Goertzel was wearing a shirt with a famous quote on it that says, being well adjusted to a sick, unsustainable system is nothing to brag about. And I just butchered that quote. I completely paraphrased it, but maybe I should have prepared for this. So, this person is lionizing the life's winners, but life's winners in the capitalist system are sociopaths. People are willing to ignore things like the entire planet dying. So all of these people who are said to be intelligent and excelling in these specific areas that he lists, it's completely overlooking the fact that these overwhelmingly these are in the United States. These are European Americans because institutions have all been specifically tailored, redlining, tracking of education, 100 things been specifically tailored to empower those people. They're not any smarter than anybody else, any better at these things than anybody else. So you can't have this kind of conversation without being an out and out elitist. And maybe past this Anderson guy was making a passing commentary on this, but it's pretty elitist stuff to say. Further, human intelligence is a lever that we've used for millennia to create the world that we live in today. Science, technology, math, physics, chemistry, medicine, energy, construction, transportation, communication, art, music, culture, philosophy, ethics, morality. With the application, it's a smart person when they talk about ethics and philosophy. Oh, that's a smart person, not a Western pseudo-intellectual at all. Without the application of intelligence on all of these domains, we would still be living in mud huts, scratching out a meager existence of subsistence farming. Planet wouldn't be dying though. Score one for the hunter-gatherer / agrarian. Instead, we have used our intelligence to raise our standard of living on an order of 10,000 times over the last 4,000 years. That could have just easily have been done. That was done in socialist countries without killing the planet. The people of the capitalist class always like to say that capitalism is doing things it's not doing, improving quality of life. People are living shorter lifespans in capitalist countries than they were a few years ago, and ignoring the fact that all of that stuff it could just as well be done by socialists and ultimately communists and be done in a much better way. What AI offers us is the opportunity to profoundly augment human intelligence to make all of these outcomes of intelligence and many others, from the creation of new medicines to ways to solve climate change and technologies to reach the stars, much, much better from here. Climate change should be at the center of all of these conversations, and sustainability generally. AI augmentation of human intelligence has already started. AI is already around us in the form of computer control systems of many kind. It is now rapidly escalating with AI to large language models like ChatGPT, and if we accelerate very quickly from here, and will accelerate if we let it. In our new era of AI, every child will have an AI tutor that is infinitely patient, infinitely compassionate, infinitely knowledgeable, infinitely helpful. Bill Gates was in the news a couple of weeks ago, a month or two ago, talking about this, how education would become something with an AI nanny. And so people would be able to learn a language, a couple of languages by age 1, and be able to do high-level tasks and be on track to be super awesome people relative to what they are today. And that's not fundamentally untrue, but of course, so many elitist assumptions built into that sort of thing, or quite a few. The AI tutor will be by each child's side every step of their development, helping them maximize their potential with a machine version of infinite love. Infinite love to train you to be an Amazon.com slave and work 100 hours a week. Each person will have an AI assistant, coach, mentor, trainer, advisor, therapist that is infinitely patient, infinitely compassionate, infinitely knowledgeable, infinitely helpful. The AI assistant will be present through all of life's opportunities and challenges, maximizing each person's outcome. And I don't think most of these capitalists are really considering what this strong AI digital assistant working in conjunction with working people, what the implications of that really are. Irrespective of whether brain-computer interfaces or the face of consciousness is otherwise changed, human beings just living their ordinary lives with access to these technologies will come together to create new institutions, which I think will lead to the Marxist tech acceleration outcomes that I described inevitably in a relatively short time. Hopefully in your life or in my life, that'd be nice. And that's kind of up to us, right? Because we have to be willing to say these things to people and fight for them, which almost none of you are either comprehending these things, or you comprehend them in a roundabout way like Mr. Anderson, but you tell a bunch of lies supporting the capitalist class, so you don't really support them. And then when the thing becomes a realistic prospect, becomes a viable thing in your life, you'll do what Mr. Zoltan Nisven does and jettison the thing that would actually be the right thing to do, because now it's become a real thing, and you're a crypto-fascist, and you'll just come up with some shitty reason why you don't want to do it anymore. So you cannot trust people of the capitalist class in this. It's why you need to educate yourself in Marxist theory, and it's why you need to become a techno-communist because not only is Marxist theory doesn't necessarily hasn't really gamed out what happens in the later part of the 20th century with respect to things like this. Most Marxists do not acknowledge advanced algorithms as the powerful tools that they are. They pretty intentionally seem to be ignoring this, which is very suspicious. Every scientist will have an AI assistant, collaborator, partner. It will greatly expand their scope of scientific research and achievement. Yeah, and the difference between this child and this ordinary worker with AI sidekick and the scientist with AI sidekicks, it becomes a little becomes a little less of a gap between those people. Right? Everyone is becoming a citizen scientist, even a 6-year-old or something, possibly in that situation. Every artist, every engineer, every business person will have the same in their worlds. Yeah. So if you have this level of the playing field, how can you not imagine that private wealth will ultimately, rightly, be brought to an end? Well, because you are a fascist sympathizer, so you can more easily imagine the end of the world than you change the economic system. Because you're a fucking idiot. That's almost everybody in the West, certainly almost everybody in the United States. Every leader of people, CEO, board leader, a government official, nonprofit president, athletic coach, teacher, will have the same. The magnification effects of these better decisions by leaders across the world will lead to enormous. So this intelligence augmentation may be the most important of all. I think the leveling of the playing field is the most important aspect. But this person at least is kind of saying reasonable things, again, filtered through their massive crypto-fascist bias. But on the whole, still, it's a kind of correct thing to say to people. Productivity growth through the economy will accelerate dramatically, driving economic growth, creation of new industries, creation of new jobs, and wage growth, and resulting in a new era of heightened material prosperity across the planet. Scientific breakthroughs in new technologies and medicine will expand dramatically as AI helps us further decode the laws of nature and harvest them for our benefit. The creative arts will enter a golden age as AI augmented artists, musicians, writers, and filmmakers gain the ability to realize their visions far faster and at greater scale than ever before. And if you watch this channel lately, there have been 2 things that have been on this channel. Ben Zion's ugly face, complaining about what pieces of shit tech people are, things of this kind, and also sometimes some AI voice swaps of covers of music with famous people singing, and that's done through precisely perhaps this kind of technology. Although would not say that anything that I've done is part of any golden age of art, but maybe there's some novelty there. I even think AI is going to improve warfare. Oh, let's improve warfare. What a good idea, Mr. Imperialist Pig. When it has to happen by reducing wartime death rates dramatically. Each war is characterized by terrible decisions made under intense pressure and with sharply limited information by very limited human leaders. Now, military commanders and political leaders will have AI advisors to help them make much better strategic and tactical decisions, minimizing risk, error, and unnecessary bloodshed. Yeah, that's by far the stupidest part of this so far. But in short, anything that can be done, that people can do with their natural intelligence, can be done much better with AI. We will better be able to take on new challenges that have been impossible to tackle without AI, from curing diseases to achieving interstellar travel. He mentions interstellar travel a couple times in passing, but anyways, too caught up on space shit, and not a serious person. You know, it's just like these AI conversations themselves, just a form of misdirection. You know, billionaires killing the planet. No, billionaires are going to space. They're heroes. You dumb fuck. And this isn't just about intelligence. Perhaps the most underestimated quality of AI is how humanizing it can be. This I agree with. AI art gives people who otherwise lack technical skills the freedom to create and share their artistic ideas. Talking to an empathetic AI friend really does improve their ability to handle diversity, and AI medical chatbots are really more empathetic than their human counterparts. Rather than making the world harsher and more mechanistic, infinitely patient and sympathetic AI will make the world warmer and nicer. And that's kind of overlooking a set of problems, which this, before there were plausibly Turing test passing AIs of the last year or so. There were still a billion chatbots and sock puppets on social media. Almost all, literally all, fascist chatbots and sock puppets serving, doing Cambridge Analytica shenanigans, completely putting their finger on the scale of every public conversation, initiative, project. That's going to get worse, right? But on the other hand, you have actual human beings who might come together to supersede that. And I hope that's the case. But based on what I'm seeing, it's a coin flip. The stakes here are high. The opportunities are profound. AI is quite possibly the most important, best thing our civilization has ever created, certainly on par with electricity and microchips, and probably beyond those. That's a true statement. The development and proliferation of AI, far from the risks that we fear, is a moral obligation that we have to ourselves, to our children, and to our future, and we should be living in a much better world with AI, and now we can. Yeah. So this person who is not a doomer, but on closer examination, some of the things that they're advocating for some of the ways that they would be in practice in these situations to do with making people's lives better. They would fumble the ball. This guy would fumble the ball. This guy's capitalist. He'd fuck up. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be have revolutionary techno-optimism. Don't be a jizzball techno-optimist. Techno-optimism is fake. There's people who call themselves techno-optimists. They're nothing of the kind. They're just people that are whitewashing serious problems. But revolutionary optimism is a real thing. It's a necessity for undertaking change in this world. And revolutionary techno-optimism is something that I hope I balance out a little bit in these conversations, because we have to be willing to fight for a better world, and that includes being willing to imagine a better world.